Hi everyone, my name is Allison Shoup, and here is my Module 14 case study. All right, so section 1 here, we summarize the facts and who's involved. We've got the assistant principal, Richard, the two kids involved, James and David, Ramos, the school police officer, the two moms that were called after the incident, and the director of secondary education. Where it took place was Rocket Junior High School. What happened, Richard called James to the office following up on his third tardy of the week. A fifth period teacher said that she witnessed James giving something to David in the hallway, possibly thinking that it was drugs, and he was summoned to the office. Richard asked the police officer to escort David out of his class and bring him to the office as well. During that time, in exchange, Richard and the police officer found brass knuckles on David, which is a prohibited weapon, and the possession of it is a felony offense, and that the boys were immediately handcuffed and taken away. Both parents were called and informed of the situation. Section 2 is reporting any illegal and ethical issues. And I wrote here that no one was physically harmed by the actions of James or David, but unfortunately James did intimidate David by bullying him, mentally intimidating him and telling him that he was going to, quote, kick his ass if he didn't hold the knuckles for him. A law was broken when James brought the brass knuckles on school property, and when he forced David to take possessions of the contraband, then now David also broke that same law by having the brass knuckles in his possession. I don't really know what state this case is from, but I did a little bit of research for the state of Kansas and found out that the state of Kansas also has a zero tolerance for weapons on school property as well. So I'm just going to assume that it's within the state of Kansas. When the students begin the school year, typically a student handbook is given out to the parents and to the kids so that they are completely informed of all the policies and rules that are in place, and they are agreeing to these rules and policies when they come to school, and that safety is the number one concern for everybody on campus, and by bringing the brass knuckles in to campus, that breaks one of those huge rules. Synthesizing the information into one sentence, an incident occurred at Rocket Junior High School that involved two students in the possession of a weapon. Therefore, the assistant principal must investigate and resolve the problem. Going over some more of facts and the details, Richard Inman is a first-year assistant principal, and he's also a Southside kid himself, so he kind of has a little soft spot for those kiddos. James is a muscular, heavily tattooed young man of 15 years old. He's kind of the ringleader of the Southside boys, and he comes to school on bus 50. David Ramos is a slightly built younger boy who is more of a scholar, honor student, and plays in the band. We've got the school police officer as well. No name is given in the case. Both the parents of the moms of James and David Ramos, and the director of education, no name given as well, but we know he's a rule follower and wants the paperwork filled out by Richard. Again, the place is Rocket Junior High School. It's a school of 900 students. I don't really know, or wasn't really given the demographics of the school as a whole. Not too sure if it was a suburban school or more of a city school site. Program, not much information also given about the programs and the curriculum given. We know that one boy is 15 years old and one boy is 13 years old. Not too sure even the grade level of the boys. We do know they have an alternative education program, the AEP. Reviewing and prioritizing information. So I was going over the information and kind of putting it to my own words. When the weapons and the violence occurs on campus, the community has a right to know. The facts will be shared, and it will damage the community. Nobody wants the kids to get in trouble. The stakeholders, though, will find out. Typically, a lot of towns have some gossip going around of the incident. We'll get told, but also when an incident like this occurs, usually there will be a school board meeting that will need to happen to decide the future of the boys with the expulsion. The future of everyone involved is at risk, not only the boys, but also for Richard, being a first-year assistant principal, not wanting to lose his job, but he's also kind of going back and forth between using his professional judgment and his ethics, and he got really attached to James and trying to put him on the right track. James has improved a little bit and being able to improve his grades and really showing up to school and trying a little bit, and this really puts James back a little bit on that track and kind of putting him back where he needs to go. I would need some more information to really truly make a great decision, but with the information that I have, I've kind of made some different options. I don't know what district this is in or what the policies are within that specific district, or if they're just following the state policies that are in place. So I've come up with 3 different options that could be made. Making the right choice and upholding my ethics as an educational leader can determine the right course of action. Therefore, there needs to be consequences for bringing a weapon to school. Should James be the only student to be punished? And I need to, and then we've got our standards here, advocate for ethical decisions and cultivate and enact professional norms. So I've got my 3 options here. Option 1, don't fill out any of the paperwork and don't follow through from the advice from the director of the secondary education. Make my own decisions on what I want to do with the boys. Some choices I kind of thought about was possibly doing an in-school suspension for the boys, maybe having them volunteer at a local elementary school to become mentors to the younger boys in the neighborhood and kind of set a good example and have them be those leaders. Option 2 is fill out the paperwork on just James, but not for David, ignoring again the director of secondary education and what he wants you to do, and take getting written up and being reprimanded by not following what he needs for me to do. That's for option 1 and 2. He could make his own case of what it means to cultivate ethical behavior in others and kind of put his own personal opinions and emotions with it. Option 3 is to fill out the paperwork on both the boys and see where everything lands, have both boys go to the expulsion hearing with the school board and let the school board make the decision on what to do from there. So pros and cons for section 7 here. So basically, are we submitting the paperwork or are we not submitting the paperwork? That's kind of really what it's down to and where Richard is at this point. So the pros of submitting the paperwork is we're protecting the students from weapons on campus and the, quote, well-being of each student, 0 tolerance for violence on campus, and also setting the example for the ethics and professional norms as an administrator and educational leader. The cons of submitting the paperwork, again, is sending James to another school filled with others that are like him, that are on the right track at the alternative education. Also ruining David's future by sending him to the alternative education at AEP. Having something negative put on both the boys' records for their future, and also tarnishing the career of Richard or myself as an AP if I don't follow through by filling out the paperwork. So choosing the best option. So after looking at all the options, if I were the educational leader and in Richard's position, I would need to put my personal connections to the side and look out what is best for my students. Safety is my number 1 concern and priority as a leader, so I would choose option 3. I would fill out the paperwork and take the case to the school board. This puts the situation out of my hands and up to the board to make a vote. I can then decide if I want to stand up and speak up for the character of either of the boys and kind of talk about what I've done with them as Richard and kind of building a connection with the boys. The stakeholders will be notified because school board meetings are public and anyone can attend. The parents of the boys can come and speak up as well if they want to. That way I can keep my reputation intact as far as following the rules and the guidelines. And as a first-year AP, I need to set the stage for how my career is going to happen. I would like to see about getting this policy possibly adjusted or rewritten. There needs to be some wiggle room when it comes to weapons and how it can affect the lives of everyone involved. This case study might be an example from the school board, for the school board to look at and take a deeper look and have the how James is being affected and David as well, and that only one of the boys actually brought the weapon to school, but now David's involved, and with the 0 tolerance of the whole situation, possibly having some rewritten parts of that policy. Section 9 here is talking about implementing my decisions. So by choosing option 3, I've taken the incident from my office, which can be an informal situation, to more of a public forum. By having the school board hear the case, I'm letting go of what the outcome can be. And I know that both James and David might be sent to the alternative education. I would be concerned for the boys and still want to stand up for them, but I would want to take my time to attend the meeting, speak up for the boys, speak for the future of the boys, and I hope that this case can bring light to the policy and hopefully there can be some changes made to it and how it's written and implemented at school level. If the boys, both of them, actually end up going to the alternative education site, I would definitely want to go visit with them and continue building the relationship with James and David I would want to go see them during those 45 days. And then had a couple of questions. What happens after the 45 days? Do the boys come back to Rocket Junior High School? What is actually put into their files? What goes with them when they're coming to applying for college, specifically David and his future, because I know that he is the one that technically didn't bring the weapon to school, but he is absolutely involved. And I know that option 3 is a harsh choice compared to the other two, but I don't make the policies. I'm here to inform them, enforce them, and if I don't agree with the policies, which looking at the case study, I can tell Richard doesn't completely fully agree with it, which is why he was hesitating to sign the paperwork, then I should discuss my concerns with those policy makers, and hopefully something can change from the situation. So my next slide here is just the standard that we were used and we were quoting throughout our presentation, and then references as far as the case studies, and I looked up what the state policy was for weapons within the state of Kansas, because I was a little curious about it. I work at an elementary school, so I don't really have weapons on campus that often, so it was more of a research base for me. Thank you so much for watching.